Boy, can I help you?
Listen up. I'm bringing you the best content to ever exist in the door-to-door industry, from sales, leadership, recruiting, and personal development.
Why would I need that?
Because never before have we been able to collaborate with the top experts in their industries, sharing their secrets and techniques on what makes them the best.
Wait, who are you?
I'm your host, Sam Taggart, creator of the D2D Experts and D2D Con. Is there a place we can sit down?
Well, come on in.
Vanilla is the fastest way to increase your Google and Facebook reviews through text. With a 98% open rate, Vanilla Reviews is the simplest, cheapest way to interact and engage with customers. Visit us at vanillagood.com for more information.
All right, everybody, this is Sam Taggart, and I am here with Julian Van Der Waal coming at you. He is all the way from Adeline. This is my farthest guest, Australia. So he is like, what? What time is it there, Julian?
8:30.
Oh, 8:30 a.m. Anyway, we pushed back to like 5 o'clock our time because it's like he's like a day behind us. I've already lived, or a day ahead of us, one of the two. But anyway, so this is our international guest. And anyway, so I invited him. He hit me up on Instagram, and we were chatting about kind of international door-to-door and kind of what's outside the U.S. You know, I've actually connected with people in Sweden and Australia now, and UK, Africa, China, Japan. It's crazy. We've got door-to-door, actually quite a big thing out of the country. And this is our first international, if you don't count Canada, guest. And I'm actually curious on this podcast to really dive into some of the differences, similarities, like what it's like out there. You know, you probably have your own culture, your own response from consumers, stigma about the industry. We're going to kind of dive into that, but we're also going to dive into, just really, he now consults companies, and he ran for 7 years. He ran his own companies and built, over 250 people in the fundraising and nonprofit and telecommunication, and has many years of sales expertise, and now goes and coaches and consults clients on the selling process and how to optimize their sales strategies over in Australia. So I'm sure that it's people are people. They're probably the same there as they are here. They deal with the same objections, the same hesitations and buying thresholds. And it'll be interesting to kind of jam internationally on this. So, but before we dive into this, for those that aren't familiar with Door-to-Door Con or that are listening to this, January 16th through the 18th, we have our event nationally in Salt Lake City, Utah. So just make sure you go register. Tickets are on sale now at d2dcon.com, and they go up every month, $25. So don't wait to go get your ticket, and super excited to see you and your team there. But I hope Julian comes out from Australia to come hang. Maybe we have him do a workshop or something and learn from the master himself. He is the Sam Taggart of Australia, I found out. So he's the shiz out there. Anyway, so tell us a little bit about your history. I mean, when did you get started? How'd you get started? What'd you sell? Tell us a little bit about kind of how you cut your teeth in D2D and face-to-face selling. And
Yes. Yeah, so basically when I was about 18 and a half, I just turned 18, I found the nightclub scene on the Gold Coast. So anyone that's been to Australia and been to the sunny Gold Coast, sunny Queensland, the Gold Coast is very much a distracting place if you're trying to focus on creating success in your life. But anyway, 18, so for about a year and a half, I mucked around the nightclub scene and kind of worked in and out of clubs and stuff like that. Nothing really major, some promotional work here and there. And then I thought I'd better get my shit together and got into some door-to-door. So answered an ad in the paper at that time. That's we're talking 18 years ago now. Yeah. And it said sports-minded people wanted. And I did a lot of sports as a kid growing up, cycling, and I probably tried every sport under the sun.
Recruit the same kind of people. I always tell people, go recruit the athletes. That's interesting. I love this. Okay, keep going.
We're used to being competitive, and I suppose disciplines played a massive part in the success that we've been able to create. And then got into face-to-face. Found it fairly easy for the most part. I don't find sailing difficult. And literally in the first 2 weeks, I was in the top 5 in the country for literally brand new people. I was in the top 5. So I thought, well, maybe I'm half decent at this. Did it for a year and a half. And really, as I was trying to build a business or trying to build a team, I really wasn't the person that was able to recruit a really good person. What I was able to do was recruit myself. Okay. And myself was great. Hello.
Oh, is that your daughter?
Yeah.
How many kids do you have?
3.
3. I've got my 3rd one on the way. Congrats, man.
Awesome. We've got number 4 on the way. So there you go. So
Right.
it must be a sales. I always say the best salespeople get the most beautiful wives. So there you go. Yeah. And then for a year and a half, I really sort of battled with the people that I was actually able to recruit. And literally 20 years ago, the business was a very, very different sort of beast. You know, it was very much where we were working for the weekend. We would kind of, you know, we are talking 20 years ago, we'd almost do almost anything without being unethical, anything for the sale. Like we would jump fences, we'd go underneath, you know, we walk through gates, we would try and get through unlocked doors to go up to high rises, and like anything we would do to get in the building to make money, we would do, right? Now it's a very different model where it's much, much more, let's say, professional 20 years ago, right? So 20 years later. So, but I really enjoyed that, you know, like I said, jumping fences and following cars into apartment buildings. And that was cool. That was fun. So, and then I really couldn't, like I said, I couldn't find myself and create the right environment for a business to be built upon. So I left the industry and then got into cooking, and then did that for 4 years, did a 4-year apprenticeship in 13 months, and then took over the restaurant 3 years after that. And then we sold the restaurant, and then got back into sales. And then 3 years after that, opened up the company down here in Adelaide. So, that's been 20 years. There you go.
So what types of industries are the big industries in Australia? Like, what do people sell typically? Like,
solar's dripping off a little bit at the moment. Fundraising's pretty big. Charitable, non-for-profit
industry here, and that's why I'm like, what do they fundraise? Like,
for charities. So for, let's say, Red Cross, Canteen, Surf Lifesavers. Probably the biggest organizations in the country definitely use this model to fundraise and increase their own revenue. And where I think a lot of people go wrong, especially in the charitable and the fundraising industry, is what it's kind of like trying to think of a business that would be in the US and North America that would be similar to here. So we've got a store called Harvey Norman. And basically, do you have something like that? Maybe probably Walmart's or something?
Yeah, Walmart.
Yeah, so I'm guessing...
Yeah, probably similar.
Probably similar to that. So basically what it is, it's anything you can get for your house, your couches, mattresses, bedroom suites, TVs.
Okay.
It's literally white goods and brown goods, and it's it's basically got everything. So a lot of people think, actually, let's use McDonald's. Much, much easier because it's systemic across the world. So McDonald's, most people think that McDonald's business model is selling burgers and hot chips. Essentially, it's real estate, right? So in the same sort of front end versus back end processes from a non-for-profit, a lot of people think that the non-for-profit's business is to help out people, which it definitely is. But really what they don't understand is that their real business is to generate revenue. That's their business. And same as any other company. The only difference is they can't incentivize people for joining them due to they can't give money away. Like you can't sign up to a charity for 12 months and get 1 month for free like you could, at a gym.
Yeah.
So it's very, very difficult to acquire customers because you can't incentivize them coming on board. You can't run a promotion. Do you know what I mean? So there's almost like, so it's very, very, and then also from the consumer's point of view, from the public's point of view, they don't want money to be spent on advertising from a charity because they should be spending money on the causes.
Yeah.
But if they don't spend money on the advertising, how would you know what the cause does?
Good point.
So there's a huge disconnect in where the money's spent, how the money's spent, and essentially what happens is as a non-for-profit ventures into marketing strategies to acquire more customers, which is what they need to do, well, if that marketing campaign doesn't work, then the media really jump in on them and kind of crucify them because they're actually wasting money, which essentially stops innovation and essentially stops marketing, which means at some point that charity or not-for-profit will no longer exist.
Yeah.
It's a very
so would you knock on doors and sign them up for like a 12-month subscription, or would you do like, hey, how much do you want to donate? I could take $5 or $5,000. It's up to you. Like,
yeah. So obviously regular donations is much better for the non-for-profits. The reason for that is they kind of know how much is coming, so they can budget. So yes, the one-off donations are fantastic, but you're going to get little spikes. Or you run, let's say, a lottery, for instance, and you get rid of a house. The house costs $1 million. You raise $2 million in lottery tickets, but every year you either got to build and sell a new house. There's no base on every correct. So the recurring revenue is much easier for the non-for-profit to budget. That way they can actually invest properly into the causes that we know and love. And
people, you knock on their door, you talk to them or whatever, and you're like, hey, you want to donate to this cause because it's awesome? And they're like, yeah. I mean, I'm doing that super watered down, but that's...
You make it sound so easy.
But I'm just saying, you're selling them on a cause at that point, right?
Of course, absolutely.
Oh, that is cool. So what are some of the cool ones that you feel like you've gotten behind that you're like, man, I'm raising money for X?
Yeah, kids' cancer. We've got a local hospital down here that we've raised a lot of money for, probably $5-6 million, which has been amazing for them.
He's done campaigns. If you're listening to this, he's done campaigns that have raised over $100 million. Like that's a lot of money. So,
yeah, that's
keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, so that we've one client. It wasn't just me. There was quite a number of us at the time, and it was over the space of, let's say, probably 10 years that we're working with this one client based out of Sydney. And for the one client, we raised $100 million for one client over 10 years. So,
do clients? So essentially, is the business model? I'm going to go sell a nonprofit on using our door team to then generate them revenue?
Yeah.
Why is no one doing that in the States?
That I have no idea.
I mean, it makes total sense. And then you just take a percentage, I'm assuming?
Yeah, small percentage. And it's the same as what people got to understand. It's a very limited way that a non-for-profit can actually advertise, right? Very limited. And on TV, radio, billboards, the return on investment is very, very small.
Yeah, it's like, what are they really getting?
And it's not guaranteed. Whereas for us, it's a bit more guaranteed because...
Yeah, you pay when I collect.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That contract model's changing to more employment, which in some ways somewhat more difficult and more challenging for the non-for-profits. But yeah, it's been in that space for about 10 years now. So
that is awesome. Okay, so let's dive into this. Let's dive into the selling process, because I'm curious. So you teach a lot of your consulting clients and people kind of a model of really how to sell without selling. What does that mean? Like, how to sell without selling? Like, I talk to me about this.
So for the sales companies, you can be very much teaching them, and it's not just the non-for-profits. We work with a lot of telcos, like you said, solar industry we've worked on. We've worked on some selling financial services, so going B2B, selling credit cards. I haven't done that personally myself, but I've definitely been in part of the organization that has. So it's not just non-for-profits. And let's say if we're talking about solar panels, for instance, if you create so much value in the product, the price doesn't matter anymore. If your product, and we all know that, right? Anyone that's listening to the podcast that's in sales understands that. But what I really focus on is just a more comprehensive understanding that it actually is value-orientated selling, if you will, or propositioning might be a better word. Once I've added so much value, then the price essentially doesn't matter if it fixes so many problems.
Yeah.
So, and that's in the close. In the pre that, obviously in the qualification process, it's just about asking intelligent questions, which most salespeople do not ask intelligent questions.
So give us some examples of intelligent versus non-intelligent questions, the common things that you see good and bad.
Yep. So an intelligent question for me would be anything that's going to move the sale forward as well. So perfect example is asking, do you have any kids? Building rapport, do you have any kids?
Yes.
And intelligent questions, especially door to door, you can always tell. So almost once you see the kids' toys and the scooters and the helmets, and you don't need to ask if they got any kids, right? So to me, it would be a better question. Would be like, hey Sam, da 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 da. Obviously, I can see there's a couple of toys around. How many little ones you got yourself?
Beautiful.
Right. So now you're going to tell me I've got 3, or even a better question than that if we're going to go even deeper. So first of all is, do you have any kids? Out of that, what's the answer? Because that can actually sound a little bit creepy. Do you have any kids? Like, why would you want to know that if the relationship's not there first? Then I can go to, how many kids do you have? Or I can go straight to, man, I can obviously got some toys around that I'm sure they're not all your scooters. How old are your little ones? Straight away, now I'll get a timeline of exactly how many kids you have, but how old they are. That's a more important question to me, as opposed to, do you have any kids, which you can see already.
Yeah, and I think some salespeople, it's like, are you an idiot? Of course I have kids. It's almost devaluing, you know what I mean? It's an intelligent question, but we just programmed our brains to ask the low-hanging fruit question instead of getting a little bit more intentional about, well, yeah, how old are the little ones running around? You know what I mean? And it's a more rapport building question. I love that. Any other examples of kind of more intelligent versus unintelligent questions you've seen effective in this?
I mean, that's probably the easiest one to run through without working on a specific campaign, let's say, or division, if you will, whether it's solar or not-for-profit or whatever. What do you guys sell over there? What do you guys? Yeah,
so big ones are solar, pest control, satellite, roofing and home improvement, security, water, like water filtration's kind of moving into a big play. Energy is a big one.
We just set up a water filtration company ourselves, actually.
Oh, really? Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a wave of like, they make those cool products that really kind of make a good solution for, softening and filtration. So, so those are kind of the main ones. So let's pick like water filtration, because you obviously know a little bit about it. Kind of what are some ways to really build the price? Because, what do you sell it for typically? What, a couple grand?
Yep, probably the same price over here.
So, somebody to be like, you just knocked on my door, I'm going to drop in a couple grand. Why, they've got to see some extreme value. And I think a lot of people, like you said, there's kind of this, we're piss poor at really creating that value that's going to over exceed their dollar, right? So you talked about kind of this 3 R's, and I'm assuming that's kind of where, take me through kind of the 3 R's that's going to support your training on this.
Yeah, so perfect. So 3 R's: reaction, response, result. There's actually 3 more, but that's more as you're leaving the door and come and resetting for the next thing. So reaction, response, result. So anything that I say, and literally when I run through pitches or people's process or whatever, I will literally rip apart every single line and sentence and teach them the outcome and the body language and what I'm looking for as a return from the consumer and the prospect to move that sale forward. Okay. So if I said perfect water filtration, have you noticed that, to me, an unintelligent question would be, have you noticed the smell of chlorine in your water? Now, that seems like for water filtration quite a good question, but I know moving down to Adelaide, the water quality down here is actually pretty horrendous. So the first time I remember smelling it, what's that?
You're stating the obvious kind of again.
Correct. But also, no one smells water, right? Water is odorless and colorless. So, have you seen the sediment in the bottom of your water? I haven't. So basically what's going to happen is you're going to shut down your own sales by asking the wrong questions. Do you mean?
Okay, keep going.
So part of water filtration and a perfect question for me is, I don't know if you know this, because what I don't want to do is insult the customer's unintelligence. I'm not too sure if you know this. Hey, you probably already know this, Sam, if I, that's a compliment to your intelligence, which is a great compliment, probably one of the best ones you can give, right? You probably already know that, but I just want, so basically, you probably already know, in the water in the US, there's about 60,000 chemicals in our water.
Wow.
I was literally doing research on this the other day, so it's funny that you mentioned it. Right? From chlorine to chloramine 6 to lead to sediment to rust to all those sort of things. So this is in the water currently. Now, chlorine is something that you need in the water because if you didn't have chlorine in the water, then all the water would be full of bacteria. So that's actually needed to keep the water at a drinkable level. But what's not needed is when it gets into your house, you actually don't need it anymore because you want it fresh and pure out of the shower head.
Yeah.
And then also, you know, the lime scale that builds up on the window?
Yep.
That's due to calcium and your heavy minerals in there. So that is, now I'm framing the problem around what the consumer has.
So now how do you ask them? So in order to ask a more intelligent question, sometimes you have to put things in context, then ask the question. So now
Exactly.
what question may you formulate now that you've kind of put a framework? Because I think a lot of people may go to an intelligent question, but it's out of context because the consumer's still over here on Mars and you're over here on Venus, and it's like,
Correct.
okay,
Exactly.
so now you kind of set up a frame. Yeah, keep going.
So basically, as I introduce myself, I want to make sure, and this is what I run through literally with the clients, is as I'm speaking to that consumer, that prospect, I need to make sure that prospect's with me hand in hand to understand the problem that they're facing. And most people are probably not problem aware, right? And if they are and they're solution aware, then it's now just a price point. So they've already found 2 other water filtrations, or they've thought about solar panels years ago. So sometimes understanding, you know, where else, Sam, if you don't mind me asking, where else have you thought about, you know, look, I've known the water quality has been bad, or I know I need solar on my roof. How long have you thought about solar on your roof for?
A couple of years, you know, ever since I started popping up. Yeah.
Perfect. Intelligent question. Now I've got data of how much solar could have saved you in the last 2 years. Now we move on, right? So now I'm adding. Yeah. So, and also let's say you don't do anything about this for another 2 years. Now we double the loss of money, and now it's 4 years. And now if I come back, Sam, in 2 more years' time and you haven't done anything about it, now you've lost, I don't know what the electricity prices in America are, but if it's my house and it's going to save me quite a lot of money, that could save me, now it's cost me $8,000 in the last 2 years. Essentially, you could have paid for your system and now you could be literally living off the grid.
And helping them see that by connecting those dots, because had you not asked how long have you thought about it, it kind of helps imply, are you going to be an idiot and keep thinking, or are we going to do something about it?
Correct, exactly. You know, I need to think about it. But Sam, you've thought about this for 2 years.
Yes.
Is 2 years long enough to think about this for? Or do you need some more time? And essentially, without insulting the consumer, we're nearly at a point where it's like, okay, you know, you've already spent $4,000. You know, the system's half paid off. Another 2 years, and literally, how fast does the time go by? How fast has the last 2 years gone? Oh, you know, my kid's now 3. Exactly. So when she's 5 and you've now lost $8,000, do you think making a decision today would have been a good decision, or should I come back on her 5th birthday and see how much money you could have saved? And we look back again on another 4 years, on 2 more years, which is now 4. Or do you reckon now it's...
That could be applied to a lot of different industries, that simple kind of thought train that you can kind of take them on. So kind of tell me a little bit more about this whole react, respond, results kind of process that you take me in.
Yeah. So if we break...
So
if we break down the systems into introduction, your qualification, your presenting the product, and then your closing, everything that I say is for a reaction. It's to reduce skepticism. It's to increase buyers' confidence and reduce buyers' resistance, increase buyers' acceptance. But to increase buyers' acceptance, you need to reduce buyer's resistance first, right? So a lot of people are going to focus on how to add more value, but the consumer's thinking, danger. I'm not comfortable. This doesn't feel right. There's something wrong. Da, 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 da. Just don't get a good vibe off that person.
Yeah, I like that.
So the consumer's never going to say, you know what, Julian, I just didn't see enough value in it. You didn't really ask me enough questions to connect me to the cause, and the close was just really washy. They're never going to say that. What do they say? Well, I'm not interested.
Wouldn't it be nice? It's like, he's like, well, had you done a little bit better at questions, it's true.
But then if
funny. I think novice salespeople think that that's how it's supposed to go. They're like, dude, it was so weird. I went through the sale, and at the end they told me they want to think about it. I just keep getting that. It's like, yeah, that's them telling you suck at your job and you couldn't close, you did.
Yeah, exactly. And for the most part, look, not everyone's going to buy from you, and you got to understand that. But there's still a high percentage for most of the products that are being sold, or else they wouldn't be sold in that format. That most times, I would say probably 80% of the population that you speak to potentially are sales. Now, whether they're ready to buy right now or in the future or well into the future, but it's just cultivating that relationship. And a lot of people think door-to-door is cold calling. I don't believe that at all. And the reason for that, I don't know how many laps you do a year of the same territory. We do about 4.
Yeah, we lap ourselves all the time.
So if we've got the same product 4 times a year, and I've been down in Adelaide for 7 years, so that's 20-something times, 28 times I've seen the same consumer about the same product, or, for not-for-profits, essentially the same product, just the outcome slightly different. Yeah, it's different, but it's the same process. Then more often than not, 30 times, I don't think that's cold anymore.
That's a good point. No, that's super.
Yeah, so it could become sub-zero if I don't do my job properly and I piss people off, right? So I don't think it's the industry at all. I think for what we've done in Australia, between the 12, 15 other companies that we've had across the country, we've done an incredible professional job for the community, for the causes, and for the industry. But unfortunately, not everyone has that long-term vision where I'm cultivating that relationship. And if they can't buy today, then maybe next time, right? As opposed to, I need to pay my rent right now, so you need to sign up, or forget about it because they're never going to be a sale.
Yeah.
Wrong attitude, short-term business plan.
Which I think a lot of reps get in that cycle. I think a lot of people get stuck in the rut of like, if I don't sell you now, I'm never going to close you. I mean, I went to the same market, West Texas, 4 years in a row, knocked the same neighborhoods by design because I loved going to them and being like, I'm back. And like, Sam, you didn't buy from me last time. You're buying from me this time. Like, I didn't remember my name and, weren't your customers yet? Like, so I definitely would concur on that, which I watch some companies, I think, that are doing it wrong. They do cold contact. And what I mean by that is they burn through a turf and say, that turf is done. See you later. Burn another turf. They think, I can't go back. We've already knocked that, which that to me does create cold calling. It's just now you're being inefficient because you're cold calling.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
No, I love that. So I want to dive into, if you're down, to a little bit more the objection side of things. So first off, while we're on the topic of door-to-door in Australia real quick, before we dive into objections, I'm curious, what do consumers, how is it looked on if you were to, knock on someone's door? Are they pretty receptive in Australia? Or are they like any other person in the world? They're kind of dicks and they're like, get out of here. Or like, what's the average reception?
Look, I don't have a problem with it. And I think I truly believe that your consumers are a reflection of you. I truly believe that. So if your consumers are being a dick, potentially look in the mirror, right? Because it's got to be coming from somewhere. But also, I've worked in a place up in Queensland where people just being really mean it. And most people are super nice to me. Why? Because I'm respectful, I'm polite, I'm not invasive, good energy, courteous. So I think it's just the way, remember, at the end of the day, for the guys that are in door-to-door listening to this, remember, you're essentially trying to get something out of that consumer, right? So for certain campaigns, you might be asking for, Optus, we were doing Optus, was a 24-month contract, $100 a month, so $2,500. I'm literally asking for out of the consumer within half an hour, or literally within 10 minutes, $2,500. So I'm literally looking for $240 per minute out of the consumer. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Right?
Yeah.
$4 a second, right? So if I'm asking for $240 a minute out of the consumer, do you think you should add some value that the consumer would want to give you $240 per minute?
Yeah. Your interaction, the way you carry yourself needs to be that way. I've never looked at the door approach or sales process that way, broken down to, I need to bring enough every second, $40 a second or $240 a minute to reflect and connect with this customer to where they're excited by the end of this to say, wow, that was a great experience. Here's my money.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. No one's ever explained it that way. So what about like recruiting? Like if you were to be, go post a job ad, is it frowned on to do door-to-door? Is it kind of like that's the scum of the earth below car sales guys? Or is it like, oh no, people do it, it's pretty common? Like what's the curious?
Well, between the organizations that I worked in 2 organizations, and between them, we've probably had about 100 companies all up. So we've recruited a lot of people. There's been a lot of people in the last 10 years that have come through our 2 organizations. And look, it's not, it's probably never going to change, and it never has changed. It's not a sexy job, but I honestly believe that there's 2 things that everyone should do when they finish school. Number 1 is go into the army for 6 months. Number 2 is do door-to-door for 6 months. It's only a year. People take a gap year and do fuck all anyway. I don't know if I can swear on this, but they take a year off and they do nothing anyway. So you might as well get some discipline, get some routines, understanding some commitment to the cause, i.e. mission in regards to the army, and also self-defense. That's not a bad thing. The way the world's going, who knows? Americans we're not that gun heavy over here. So
yeah, it's an actual like fight there. For us, everybody whips out a gun. I love it. Keep going. Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
We had a massacre in Port Arthur, and the government at the time said, that's it, no more guns, and everyone gave the guns in. And I don't know, Jim Jeffrey does a really good, have you heard of Jim Jeffries before, the comedian? Australian comedian. He does a really funny skit or bit on gun control and the differences. So it's quite funny. So,
no, but I make a good point though. Like, it's so funny that you say that. And we're hearing this from the other side of the world, the same principles of, and I'm very much so like why I started my movement and why I've kind of put this all together of this event and the podcast and the tribe page and the Instagrams and all the stuff we're doing is to help build awareness so that people do say, okay, maybe I'll try this door-to-door thing out, because I believe, much like you, that everybody should at least give it a shot and give it a good shot. Don't try it out for 4 days and call it quits, because that's a freaking thing. Like, say I'm all in for at least 6 months. And if you love it and you're making killer money, then keep doing it. Great. You know what I mean? Turn it into a career. And it's interesting to see more people. So I appreciate you being an advocate of that, because the skill set, the communication, the work ethic, and I'm glad that even in Australia, that's how it's viewed. You know what I mean? Like the hard work and sweat and tears of rejection you get is such a character builder that's, you can't
100%. Yeah. I was literally thinking about that literally last night. We don't have a mental health issue. We have a mental strength issue, right? We don't have mental health issues. We have the ability to be strong mentally. That's our issue. And that should be our focus. So yeah, door to door, you know, people might think, oh, it's a shit job. No, not really. You know, I think if you try it for 4 days and you say it's a shit job, no, you were shit. Wasn't the job. You just
exactly. You have a mental strength issue. I love that.
Yeah, strength issue. So it's not the job. But then they'll go work at McDonald's for 3 or 4 years just working out what they want to do. Like, come on, man.
It's like we literally lost a rep to Burger King. Like that's a sad moment when it's like, dude, I quit your vehicle, which is mentally challenging, but that's the point. And he goes and quits and goes to work for McDonald's or Burger King. It's like, man, we got this backwards. We got this wrong. No, so
look, I'm definitely not saying it's easy.
Oh no, I bet you it's just as hard. Like, I'm actually curious. If I ever come to Australia, I'm gonna hit you up and be like, let's go hit some doors just because I think it'd be fun. But I guarantee you it's the same principles. Like you said, it's a mirror. I teach that principle. It's funny, we're on two separate sides of the world and we're teaching the same principles of, if they're being dicks, it's probably because you're coming off like a dick and you have this energy you're giving off. If you're coming off as a bubbly, fun guy to talk and interact with, like you said, every minute you're with them, you're giving them $40 worth of, or $240 or whatever that calculates to. It's like, you're going to have a better equation. You're going to have a better outcome to this equation. I love that.
And also from a positive attitude and maintaining your attitude type of process, if you're focused, and I've done this test with my own company where obviously they're working on commission, and I said, look, I'm going to pay you guys I worked out the last 6 weeks, worked out an average of how much they did per day. I said, no matter what you guys do today, we will pay you the same profit as if you were going to do your average sales for the last 6 weeks. So no matter if you did no sales, you get the same price as what the last 6 weeks average per day was. But all I want you to do is focus on getting high fives, smiles, laughs, and thank yous. That's it. That's all I want you to focus on. Their day was, I said, how was your day? They said, oh, it was really, really good. I said, how was your attitude? They're like, all day. We also forgot to do some sales, but we'll factor that in the next time. But essentially, my point was, if you focus on the sales and the result, your attitude will go up and down due to result or no result. If you focus on adding value and being happy and acquiring positivity from the consumer, your day will go better. Now, let's do that, plus sell, and now you've got a winning combination.
I love it. I love it. I'm writing notes because this is
your morning meeting tomorrow.
This is my morning. This is my morning mantra. I love, dude. Quote Julian Van Der Waal from Australia, right? My new chat. But no, dude, I'm loving this. I'm just eating this all up because it just validates. It's interesting. We're all, like, a lot of us are cut from the same cloth. A lot of Utah companies come from door to door because, you got the Mormon missionaries and stuff. And then, they've all branched out all over. And then you've got, but it's just kind of like, it's the same freaking stuff in Australia. And it's the same freaking, you know what I mean? The other thing, the only difference is when we knock a door, the customer's probably like, dude, I'm going to sick my dog on you. And when you knock the door, they're probably like, I'm going to sick this gator or this kangaroo on you. That's the only difference probably.
We actually ride kangaroos door to door. That's how we get around over here.
Yeah, we ride scooters, you ride kangaroos. I'm assuming it's I love the stigma. It's so fun. Anyway.
Callback time is emus because they're much faster.
Yeah. You guys think we ride kangaroos? You got it all wrong. It's emu. Totally wrong. Sorry, I didn't mean to offend. It was the emu.
Emus, yeah.
Anyway,
I got to see 50 people today. I got to move. You know what I mean?
I got to move. Yeah, it's like we're riding segways. We don't have it right. Crikey, dude. Crikey. All right. I have loved this. And if you're listening to this, hit up Julian and, on Instagram. What's your Instagram handle or something? I know you're building a brand name.
Yeah, at Julian Van Der Waal.
at Julian Van Der Waal, and we hope to connect with you and bring out the squad out in Utah. Bring some people to DDCon. We had some international people flying last year. A guy from Sweden and some Canadians, and we had like 200 Canadians. But anyway, I hope to see you come out in January. But I always ask the same question, the very last question. It's like, if you were to give the industry one piece of advice, what would you give it?
Oh, good question. Biggest thing is just add value. Add more value than what you get. And if you focus on adding more, you get more from more places. That's the cool part. Don't focus on getting. And that's where you'll find that when you go through sales slumps or dips, don't give transactionally. Give in a very servant mentality where you just give. And if you get, fantastic. And if you don't, no problems, because that wasn't the focus of the outcome. The focus of the outcome was to give, add value, entertain, inform the consumer, and have a good process, and the result will happen. When you focus on giving to get, that's when shit it goes wrong.
I love that nugget. Well, dude, I've honestly appreciated this jam, and thank you for obviously the time zone difference, probably confusing, and coordinating this. It's been a minute in the works, and hopefully those listening obviously got some value and hopefully opened some eyes to how cool and big our industry is. We're all a tribe, we're all a brother, and a brotherhood and sisterhood that bringing this together. You know what I mean? My mission was to create a community worldwide and really connect everybody and unify this industry so that people can walk around with a shirt and pound their chest and say, I knock doors, and be proud of it. So
the biggest thing, on the last one is be proud of what you do. Do you know what I mean? Like there's to be good in this industry, you need to be good. And the best people are very good. That's what people don't understand. Do you know what I mean? So don't think, and the thing that used to give me a lot of confidence, and I finish on that, is when my friends used to ask me, you're doing that door-to-door stuff, or even when I was setting up my company, and we, 7-figure company, as I was setting up, they're like, you're still doing that door-to-door thing? And they were joking about how I'd knock on the door. So I was actually kind of not even revered as setting up a company. It's like, ugh. But to be good in this industry, you need to be very good. And the thing that used to give me a lot of confidence is that most of my friends' jobs, I could probably work out how to do in 2 weeks, maybe 2 months. And then I have it nailed. But I have not, out of all the people that I've known and met, no one is going to come and do what I do. No one.
Yeah, no, and there is definitely a skill set in art. It's like, I look at it as like, there's probably the MBA of door-to-door people that if you somehow recruited, like you could pick 200 of the whole world, and there's probably this weird elite class that they're just different animals. You can't teach it. So part of me is like, I don't know if you teach it, dude. There's just a resilience, a mental strength that sometimes I don't know if we just got dropped on our heads weird as kids, but
not even it helped.
You got a Spartan helmet behind you. I figure you could put that on.
Exactly. That's how I do it.
Yeah, that's how he does it. He's like, just in case, I'm used to it.
Low demographic over there. It's dangerous.
Anyway, hey man, I got a jet, but dude, I appreciate your time on this, and let's keep in touch. But appreciate you being on the show, and best of luck, and thank you guys for listening.
Awesome, thanks guys.